This is Sandy Tankus for TOS50.com, the other side of 50. And I'm in Long Island with Dr. Lusterman. Good afternoon, Dr. Lusterman.
Good afternoon to you.
And we're going to be speaking this afternoon about autism, grandparents and autistic grandchildren. Our children grow up, they have their own lives, they have children of their own, and all of a sudden we're in a new stage of life with grandparents. We hope and pray that the children are healthy and things go well, but in today's world, 1 out of every 150 children born turn out to be autistic. And I think the figure is even higher if you're just looking at boys and not both
Much
boys
higher.
and girls.
4 times higher.
4 times higher, okay? So, as grandparents, we want to have a relationship with our grandchildren. How do we relate to an autistic grandchild?
The first thing you need to remember is, as with so many things, no one size fits all. Autism is a very precise concept, but among other things, one of the things we want to know is what is the level of functioning of the autistic child. I have an autistic grandchild as well.
So do I.
Okay. So you know, if we compared notes, we would find we had 2 very different How old is your grandchild?
9.
Mine is now 11. Adam is a brilliant young artist. He's amazing. He sings exquisitely. He knows the words to every song, all the verses of Mav's Sur, whatever. Whatever he's singing, he knows all the words. He is very bright, but he is so difficult because of his sudden shifts, because of his strange thinking, because of his talking to himself as if he's really talking with another person, and it happens suddenly, because of the sudden shifts in his relationships. He is definitely autistic, but he is different from other autistic children I will meet, some of whom have no speech, or very little speech, very limited speech. And he's not Asperger's, he is autistic. So it varies, and I don't know about your grandchild, but I know that the way he is has a great deal of the way I learned to function with him. He's also a brilliant young little artist. He did stuff, I wish I could show it to you, on the, when he was 3, he actually invented a form of computer art that was so good that artists would look at it and say, this kid is going to be an artist, don't touch this stuff. Perfectly balanced, and how he learned to create blanks of color, shapes, anything he wanted. He was 3 or 4.
Well, if we want to interact with our autistic grandchildren, how do we know what activities we can do with them?
You watch them, at least what I did, is I watched very closely. I'm not a game person, so I couldn't play games. He likes games, but I couldn't play games with him because I just don't do it. But I discovered when I sat at the piano to practice, which I do every day, I would notice he would sit under and kind of watch what my feet were doing, and then he'd come up and he'd kind of eye my hands. He was a very curious person. And sometimes he would do something destructive like bang at it, and then I would just say, well, I treat him like I would treat anybody else. If you bang, you won't hear the music, and I can't practice. As impulsive as he is, he stopped. And then he'd start banging, and I would say, don't, even if I'm not playing and you bang, you're going to hurt the piano. In other words, I tried to just be with him. It requires a lot more patience because he would seem to get something, and then 2 minutes later it's like it was never there. So it's frustrating. I found that I had to work harder to have the kind of fun with him that I wanted to have, and it was my frustration that I had to deal with. So what I learned is that he loved music, so we had something together in music. I'm a photographer. He's, I think, a brilliant little artist. And again, some of the things that an autistic child will do because of the intensity and the singularity of what they're doing. What they're doing is what they're doing. Nothing else. That's why they can tell you what my grandson, I don't know about your kid, but my grandson could tell you, your birthday in 2013 is going to come on Friday.
Oh.
And he would be right.
Yeah.
Why could he do that? Because that was all he was focused on at the moment. Autistic people have the amazing ability to be totally singularly focused. And that's quite remarkable. So I learned to kind of ride with it. And if he shifted, I wouldn't try to hold on anymore as I would with my kids, because they would shift with me. If he's there, my experience has been, and I tell parents of autistic people I work with, try to ride with the crest. Now this is unusual because most of the training of autistic children is what they call ABA.
Right.
And ABA is very useful, but again, no one size fits all. And if you impose a structure without knowing that particular autistic child, they all have similarities, but they all have differences. So in this case, I found that my interaction with him as a grandpa depended upon my ability to know where he was.
Well, is there anything we can do that would actually help them?
Oh, this helps a lot. When we go away, we get now a packet. He stopped doing his computer route. He writes little books now, filled with the most marvelous cartoons. And he'll give us a book. He said, "Wait a minute, you can't leave yet," because he has to give us our going away book, and it's beautiful. And you look and say, "My gosh, where does this come from?" Well, he has more time to think about it, which is quite remarkable. We tend to look at the children as hurting and having damage and flaws, but he also has specialness that is quite remarkable. The sad thing is that every once in a while we get a report from the school that he acted out and it was dangerous and scary, and that's the sad part. But my other kids got calls from school sometimes. It just wasn't exactly the same calls, but they acted out too. I think part of it is learning, and sometimes, by the way, I think it's very comforting to our kids as if we as grandparents, who spend a lot of time with these kids often, can convey that sense of okay, there are special things. When we used to go away, when we didn't have the money to do so, the nice lady came. My wife was very worried because, my gosh, we'd be away from the children, but we had to get away. And she was wonderful because she always wrote a little diary every day, and there was always a wonderful story about something one of the kids did. Usually the kid we were most worried about. So I made it a habit if Adam does something particularly adorable or precious or good, boy, you never believe what he did today. And it makes a difference. I think we have a power in doing that. The parents are so tightly tied into the treatment community and into working that they lose some of the fun of the child. Do you have fun with your grandchild?
Absolutely, I adore her.
And that's the thing. It's not that they don't.
I take her to the beauty parlor.
Oh, there you go. But there are strictures that are on parents of children with any kind of a disability that get in the way sometimes. They're so perfectionistic, and we don't have to be. We're grandparents. We don't have to be perfectionistic at all. And of course, they can always say, "Well, yeah, but we don't have to keep. You send it back to us." But we send them back if we're lucky with some lovely new thing, and I think that helps to build the esteem of the child and of the parents too.
What about bringing them gifts? I mean, how do you know what kind of gifts to
Oh
give?
gosh, that is hard.
Yeah.
Most of the gifts that we got originally, he just threw away.
Right.
And the last year we were coming back from Israel, we got something for everybody, and we were at the Paris airport, and we still hadn't figured out what to get for Adam. I just couldn't. I said, he loves looking at things. He's really an artist, so he's all eyes. And I found this little thing. It was supposed to be a microscope to look at a bug. It was like a jar, and at the bottom there was a toy bug, pretty big. But when you looked at it in this jar, it was enormous. And I said, "You might not like the bug." He was a little scared of the bug. I said, "Well, let's forget about the bug. Let's put a little pebble in there." And he fell in love with this. So for the first time, I said, "Wow, if I watch him closely and I find something which he already is interested in and play a little game on it, he'll like it." And at first I said, "How do you like it?" He said, "Oh, it's okay, it's nice." And then a few days later, he said, "Look what I can do with this." And then it became part of who he is. So I think the trick is, look, first interview I ever had in Newsday, they asked me what a good gift is. And I said, a good gift is when you really know the person you're giving it. If you love the person, you listen to the person, you know about the person. And I think it's especially so with that particular grandchild. You have to know him so well that the person deep down is saying, and you know it, "Wow, how did you know I'd like that?" And, an autistic child is a child.
Is there any hope that these grandchildren will live a productive life?
You ever hear of Temple Grandin?
Yes.
Okay. The answer is self-evident. Just as we never thought at a certain point that children who had Down syndrome would be productive. My gosh, we were wrong. We're wrong all the time. Usually if we bet on people, we're going to do a better job. I bet on my grandson. He's going to do something very remarkable. Probably in music or in art. But not necessarily. He's very scientific.
Well, he inherited your musical talents.
Well, goodness knows where it came from. I was what they call a mutation or a sport is the word. That's what I used. I had one uncle a cousin William came to teach me. He was my first teacher. He used to sit there, and he would play a piece, and then I'd simply repeat it, and he thought I was learning it. He thought I was reading the notes. So Cousin Woody was the first musician in the family, but he really wasn't. I was the first musician in the family. But the kids, yeah, they are. It's a musical family. We sing all the time.
That's great.
But, you know, and again, who's the best singer? Next to his sister, who's a trained singer, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
And his voice is exquisite. It's like it's the heaven when you listen to it. So I look for the pleasures. I look for what I can honestly share with him. And when he hears me tell stories about him, he pretends he's not listening, but he's listening. You know he's listening. You got to see this thing. I don't want to do it, you know, but he knows it.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Lusterman, and we will be speaking to you again soon.
Okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon.